I'm Barbara, and this is about the 9 best things of .NET 9. And this is me, and this is my logo. So I come from mathematics. I have done a PhD. It's Dr. Barbara Maren Winkler-Wolff. Did that in the most unlikely of engineering disciplines, namely mining, and have been doing software around engineering really ever since. And this is my logo: code, run, so repeat. So I'm having fun while doing this. I have it everywhere. This is my cup. I have a t-shirt with it. I have stickers with it. The one type of machine that I have not been able yet to program and still want is a sewing machine. Talking about coding, this is obviously how this .NET release sits in the release cycle. So this is called a standard term release. It has support for 18 months, meaning next year, and we have another long-term support, which has support for 3 years. And currently, the long-term support that's currently running is .NET 8. So if 1.5 years is too short for you, just wait until next year, and you will have all those features being rolled into .NET 10. But we are going to have fun with it. For me, really for a couple of years now, November, it was Christmas, because that's the time when the new .NET comes out. And almost every time in it, there is something in it that I think is just a godsend. It's just solving a problem that I had in the year, or is making something so much easier, or solves a thing that has cost me 3 days somewhere, or so on. So nearly every time. And so what are the 9? I mean, pick a number. I'm trying to just give an overview. And this is about the basics of .NET. So there's .NET is, of course, a huge ecosystem. You have all these, you have Aspire, you have ASP.NET Core, you have Entity Framework, you have what have you. This is just about the core, like that they all have in common. So the language, C#13 now, the runtime, and the libraries. And I've tried to pick out the 9 best things that I found. Okay, so, and let's go. First thing for me is in C# is this new field keyword. Now, formally, that is not actually really even a feature of C#13, because it's only in preview, because like they're saying they want to see how we travel with it, because it is a breaking change. So what does it do? This field keyword for you removes the necessity to have a backing field for your otherwise automatic properties. So if you even want to do the slightest little bit of processing somewhere in the setter, or God forbid the getter of your property, previously you had to make this backing field variable and then had to decide what its name, where it's put there. Like the renaming is a hassle, and it's just makes things so much easier to not have to do that. So for me, this is a preview feature. So to get that, you have in your project file, you have to say lang version is preview. And why is it a breaking change? Of course, because you could possibly have a variable field somewhere. Previously, there was a legal variable name. Now it isn't anymore. If you have somewhere in your code base that variable and you want to upgrade, you'll get possibly errors, or warnings at least, and you will have to use the keyword escape character, the @ sign before now. But for me, I take that trade-off anytime. Come on. Number 2, new lock object. Another conundrum being solved. So locking is something like for multi-threading, for protecting resources across multiple threads, something that happens all the time. And this lock statement, of course, is previously only syntactic sugar for monitor.enter and monitor.exit. And people lock on all kinds of things like objects, types, strings, what have you. And it's never really clear, and there are arguments for it, against it all. now this is clear that there is a new dedicated object for this purpose, and it's an object, so you're not working statically anymore. It's this object that is designed to log this particular part of your code. And it works, the nice thing, it works with the same semantics. So you don't have to change how you use it. You can still use just a log statement. And if the object that is being logged is of type log, then the compiler knows what to do with it and applies the new semantics. You can also, you can also use it in the old way with log.enter and log.exit, if you want to use it that way. Third thing, partial properties. So we've had partial types, we've had partial methods, now come partial properties. How would a property even be partial? This is how. So, and this is perfect for code generation, or if you have code that's generated from somewhere and you want to update a property that's already there. And the simple or the automatic property on the left, that's called the declaring property, and then you can have another partial property for that, where you do the actual processing, whatever that will be inside that property. Let's go on to the runtime. What's new? So there's now a compiler support for feature switches. So obviously, feature switches is something that a lot of us use to have certain features in the code that will apply to some product, some version of your software, but not another. You can tell the compiler to respect that. So, and you do that with the runtime configuration in the project file. This means you can do it in the build, and you can say, I define in the build, in my build project file, that this feature is now supported or not supported for this particular compilation of it. And it supports trimming. Yes, question?
Is this sort of like a feature flag? Is it not?
Yeah. So this is what you write there would be like whatever you have, like your feature flag. Like you would implement this like your normal feature flag, but you can now bind it in this form to the definition in the project file.
The trim is the most important part. If the build will take that code out, so when you ship the code, it doesn't have it in it at all.
Yeah.
It's just not working.
So it's not a runtime feature project, it's a build time.
No, it's a build time feature, yeah. Okay, then there is one thing that, so they've said they've optimized made it faster in a lot of different places, but one interesting place that they had was loop optimization. And so this gets a bit esoteric, like it goes down into how is a loop compiled into machine code, and they explain some of that. And they always take like this example, a very simple loop there, and then they explain what they've done with it. And I'm not going into the very deep things, but like they have certain, like these keywords here, what they have done. Induction variable widening, meaning that this I thing, that's an int, so normally 4 bytes, but on a 64-bit architecture, it will be 8 bytes, but then in the loop could be somehow morphed into a 4 and back, and that loses time, and now the compiler cannot lose that time. And post-index addressing. So on ARM64 systems, there is like a machine code option to combine the access of the nums index and the I++. And that would be faster to do only one instruction instead of 2 for that. Strength reduction is when the compiler recognizes something that there exists semantically the same but faster equivalent machine code. It can replace that. And loop counter variable direction, like you have maybe heard that in some cases and on some instances going like doing minus down to 0 instead of going up to some count is actually a little bit more efficient. Now the compiler can recognize that you're not using the value and can do that automatically. I've put demo there. I don't think I will have time for the demo. What I've done, but I was curious about this. and I benchmarked it. And if you're interested, we can sit together after this and we can try and run the benchmark. I've run it on another computer. And if you're less interested but still want to know what I found out, ask me afterwards. So onto the libraries. There's a huge amount of improvements and new things in the libraries. One of the things that I think will be most interesting and most often used is something like LinQ CountBy. And just to show what it does, the lower one is the way how you would have done it before, and the upper one is how you can do it now. And assuming here we have some text, source text, and we want to find the most frequent word in it. And like the first line, the split is the same for both of them. It just splits the text into words. But after that, so previously in an older version, you have to first do a group by and then select something, and way more complicated and worse to read than to say just we're counting by words. This is it. So there's probably a lot of really good applications for this one. And then for this one as well, another one, AggregateBy. So you can now say I'm grouping this stuff by that, and then I aggregate over those in some way, and can say that with one statement alone, instead of having first a group by and then a funny way how you process it. Okay. Read-only-span, lots of places. This is a constant theme across all different things that they have introduced. Many places in the libraries, you pass in a string for some certain purpose. And if you have been working more efficiently and you had your thing in a read-only span, then you first have to convert it and do the allocation to have the string. And they've removed that need in a number of places. So that's, for example, regex, you can split via regex, but you normally have to pass in a string. Now you can do it with a read-only span of char. Split, the split is the second one there, the read-only span of char split by a character. That is an extension method. There were previously split and split by extension methods for read-only spans, but they were not as useful. They were only useful if you knew the number of splits beforehand and so on. Now this one allows you to enumerate over the ranges that you get without having to know the number beforehand. So much more user-friendly, so to speak. And you can pass it into a params, like make it params of a method. Then, oh yeah, file write all text used to be just a string, and you can now pass in your read-only span of char. The last thing is even yet another thing. So you can define on a dictionary an alternate lookup. You can say, this is a dictionary of strings into ints, but I don't want to look it up by strings, so I don't have to have this extra allocation. I want to look it up by my read-only span of char. And then I can say that, and then I can do that. So here, where I'm doing the span lookup, that expression is a read-only span of characters. And number nine, well, is a question where to end. So there's lots of little things which they've done here and there, little that have just caught my attention. So how you can, for example, previously, if you wanted to have a base 64 encoding, but something that you can stick into a URL, there's some characters that you cannot use. Now there is a base 64 URL class that you can simply use without having to massage things around. The binary formatter is deprecated and absolutely deprecated now. Like it was previously deprecated, but now you cannot use anymore. It will throw when you try to, because it's apparently the way how it deserializes is a security risk. At least makes you vulnerable to denial of service, like let's say your app crash, could also potentially make your app malicious, like execute code that like arbitrary code inside your environment. So that's now absolutely deprecated, and they have a guide for how to migrate from it if you needed to use it before. This thing with a persistent assembly builder is so you can generate an assembly and then now emit it and write it out with PDB support, so you can afterwards debug it. Time span, there are new overloads. For example, here you can pass in seconds and milliseconds explicitly. Big integers multiplication, like, it happens all the time, right? You need this all the time. You have a 64-bit thing and another 64-bit thing, and you want to multiply them without truncating. Well, you can now. You have the BigMul. And this priority queue. The priority queue existed since .NET 6, but it didn't have a remove. And so you could not update the priority with this. But all the 5 times that in the real world that you said, oh, this could be well solved with a priority queue, then every time, well, in the real time, priorities change. And now, if you were lucky, you had this math geek sitting in the corner who said, I'll write you that remove. But now they've done it, and you can just use it and update the priority of in your priority queue. So for me, that was really a big thing. Right, 9 things. Just to give a taste of what this new release does and the new things we can play with. Thank you very much.